Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain. This bonus episode of the Supply Chain Brain podcast was recorded at the 2025 Intermodal Expo of IANA, the Intermodal Association of North America, in Long Beach, California. I spoke with Curtis Spencer, Chief Executive Officer of Bloodhound Tracking Device, Inc., about cargo theft tracking and security. Here's our conversation. Curtis Spencer, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Now, we hear, Curtis, that cargo theft is indeed surging. Where are the gaps in supply chain security today?
There's a lot of gaps. I mean, you could talk about the digital gap, which is the fake BLs and things like that that are floating around. But there's an inherent disconnect between where my TMS provider says my cargo is and where my cargo is. I remember talking to a guy at Flexport when they were first really getting into TMS, and they said, we get 8 in-gate signals per container over a 5-day period.
So a big lag of information.
Just from different sources.
Oh, I see.
But they're saying, okay, it came in at 10:25 a.m. on the 31st, and the next guy say it came in on the 2nd, next guy says it. So there's a disparity of information unless you have full fleet indoctrination.
Is this the result of different devices each reporting, or is it the same stuff reporting 8 different ways? I don't understand.
So it's in the case of most TMS systems that are pulling data from the steamship lines, they're pulling it from the terminals, they're pulling it from bots scouring the internet for information. They're getting a disparate amount of information. If we have full fleet usage of a track and trace device, like the one is doing, or like Hapag-Lloyd has done, and like Zim is doing, there's about now 18% of all dry boxes are fitted with accurate track and trace devices.
So
that
the containers themselves have these built-in.
They have them on each container, and they've made that commitment. And the president of Hapag came on a podcast or an interview a couple of weeks back and said, we're getting business from all the other lines because the shippers want that service. They want that accuracy. Furthermore, in that same article, it said that in a poll of the BCOs, that $50 a unit per shipment would be what they'd be willing to pay for accurate data. $50 a shipment.
Wow.
They would be willing to pay that. Now, when you add to track and trace, which I feel is going to be just the gimme standard, everybody's going to have that. Now you add security, and you got devices out there. You got a very few devices out there that also provide security in the form of what? Tamper. They've got security. They got door open, door close. Some even go so far as to take a picture. They'll take a picture whoever opens the door. Not immediately, but in 3, 6, and 12-second bursts. So you've got these different higher level track and trace systems that add the security. Dry box doesn't necessarily need temperature, humidity, and CO2, but a lot of them that have that are going to be the cream of the crop.
What about the reefer fleets? Do they
reefer fleets need it too?
They have.
Almost all reefers have got some kind of track and trace and temp, humidity notification. But then a lot of them are also not self-powered. So they rely on the power of the reefer. Now that reefer gets unplugged, it doesn't have power. You've got a loss there of data. So it's a real tricky business in reefer for me, because I want to know every second of the way. I studied the flower industry 20 years ago. I was in Miami and met with the consortium and talked with all those guys. They have a tolerance level of 3.5 to 4 degrees. Think about it, Bob. 34 to 37, that's all they can handle in the entire transit.
Is it tied to an alert system, or are you simply staring at a screen minute by minute?
Well, the alert system, so some of these providers will do a dashboard that you would have to look at. But others have a dashboard plus alerts that go right to your email or right to your text. Hey, you've exceeded, in the case of the flowers, you're now at 38 degrees Fahrenheit. That's too high. You got to have that. You got to have that kind of connectivity. You got to have that kind of constant consistency, and you have to have that level of sophistication of your units.
I'm hearing, Curtis, a bit of a disconnect here. You're telling me there's all this great technology out there, and we're also saying that cargo theft is surging. Is it simply lack of application, lack of acceptance, lack of adoption? Is the price point too high? Why is that disconnect happening?
I think technology has finally caught up to it, but it's a great question, Bob. And it's everything. You know, if you offer no capex and the ability to lease your units over time, well, you've just lowered the barrier to entry. If the technology has finally caught up, and it's an expensive thing, but think about this: how high and expensive has insurance gotten because of the theft issue? Well, if you deploy units that can handle all of these different issues, security, push notification for breaches, and the track and trace accuracy of a global system, now you're going to lower your insurance costs.
You have this idea of so-called triple redundant communications. Tell me
Yes,
about
sir.
what that is.
So, in the world today, there's a multitude of ways of getting communication: cell, GPS, SATCOM, and then there's IoT mesh. There's big-scale IoT mesh out there.
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. NASA uses it on how they communicate with satellites. That communication is packet communication. You know, your cell phone, TCP/IP. I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. I'm talking to you. Now we go under a bridge. Oop, I lost you.
Right.
And I can't get that. It doesn't immediately pop back on. You got to call the guy again, right? Well, in packet technology, the disruptive tolerant network, disruptive tolerant mesh network, you're storing and forwarding all that data. You never lose it because it's packet to packet to packet. It's shipment. I mean, it's moving from one tower to the next tower, but it's keeping that information.
Who is paying for the technology? If it's attached to individual containers, largely is what we're talking about, or trailers as well, I'm sure.
Trailers as well, yes, sir.
Who owns the technology? Who bought it? Who puts it in?
You know, in most cases, the companies that are deploying this over their entire fleets, they're spending the money for it.
The carriers.
Hapag, the carriers.
Okay, Hapag in that case, a shipping line.
Yes.
You
get a trucking line that
too?
says, hey, I got 1,000 trailers. I'm going to put some kind of track and trace and security device on every single one. Your majors, your JB Hunts, your Schneiders, they all have this kind of capability. The question is that capability enough to answer your first question, which is the theft piece? It's great to know where it is. I need to know it's been breached. And I need proof of that breach. And that's why, you know, the guys out there with the cameras and the door open close technology really, and where and when that happened, really help out.
Artificial intelligence come into the picture these days in any way?
100%.
And if so, how?
You're reading my mind. It's the back end. All that data is getting processed in a big giant database in the cloud. What you want is pattern of life. How do I determine patterns of life in shipments? I'm doing a lot of shipments between Mexico City and Chicago, Mexico City and Alabama for an auto plant. I notice when I take Route A, I'm always a day and a half faster than when I take Route B. I won't know that unless AI is in the background, machine learning, trying to put these things together and say, hey, that route up I-35 isn't as fast as that route up 45. You know, take the different route, and you only get that because you have all the data. And it's accurate, timely, and available.
Timely, you say? Real time kind of thing?
Real time.
Readjust its
Absolutely.
findings according to actual traffic patterns?
Yeah, because that's what you're
weather,
going to want.
things like that?
You're going to want the system to be able to tell you, I'm finding this pattern of life that's better than that pattern of life. You're going to go from this OD, origin destination point, then you need to travel this way, not that way.
I know this is an audio podcast, so we have to use our imagination to visualize, but give me a sense, Curtis, of what these devices look like today. They're different than they used to be, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. And part of the thing is, you know, I was talking to a shipper today, and the real need in these track and trace devices is covert track and trace device. If the unit is a big red flag because it's on the back of the door, then all the bad guys see that and know that something valuable is in that container, in that trailer. If it's hidden, if it's a covert piece, and there's a couple of companies out there that have that. They have covert looking units. So, for example, the form and function of one supplier is of a container vent. It looks just like any other container vent. Therefore, you've got complete covertness. The interesting thing is in trials that have happened with that particular company, they found the guy who was stealing from the customer. They got his picture, and the steamship line stopped allowing that customer on their shipping. Eliminated that customer from their roster.
Now, of course, in some cases, the thieves are already ahead of you if they've hacked into the systems and they know what's in a container or trailer already.
Yes,
they don't
sir.
need to know. They don't need a warning sign or an indication. They already know the contents.
And that's happening more and more.
Right. So alongside these tracking systems, do you not have to have protection of the information flow? And is that a whole different situation, or is that somehow tied into this technology?
The current technology that I've seen doesn't have that kind of tie-in. It's coming. I think that's the next gen. However, what you'll notice is, especially in your pattern of life, if that was a shipment from Mexico City to Chicago, and all of a sudden it's going on the way on I-10 to L.A.,
Yeah.
my shipment's been hijacked. I know it right off the bat. So the other thing that some of the track and trace companies and the security companies are doing is they're geofencing certain areas. So they know what the route is. If it deviates from that route, they immediately get an alert. Very smart tech.
This
Very smart
This
tech.
feels like a game sometimes, though, with thieves always trying to stay one step ahead, or we trying to stay one step ahead of the thieves. What's the latest in terms of what thieves have figured out, and what do we have to surmount now? What's the new wrinkle in all this?
The new thing is over-the-air updates. You know, if I put these units on a trailer or on a container, I don't want to have to send somebody to the field to update software or firmware. But as the thieves get smarter, the technology gets smarter. So about 2 of the 15 different track and trace companies out there, Bloodhound 1 and I think Orbcom, they have over-the-air updates, software, firmware, over-the-air updates.
Protected.
And yes, completely protected. The over-the-air updates are through SATCOM and cellular on these units, and that way, as the bad guy starts figuring out a new way, then the hardware and the software back end has to figure out new ways to combat that crime.
I wonder, and this is really looking into the future, if we get ever to the age of autonomous trucking, which I guess is coming at some point.
At some point, at point to point, they're actually working right now.
Yeah, will that not open up a whole new set of vulnerabilities that can be hacked into, and even getting control of a vehicle in
Sir,
ways that they can't now?
You are absolutely singing my song. I've been saying this for years. The other part of my life is as a transportation consultant, logistics consultant for 45 years in international with customs and domestic. And what I see that the biggest potential for hacking is for these autonomous trucks, because if they can get in, because they're on TCP/IP. If you're not packet, you're TCP/IP. I'm talking to you, you're talking to me through the cell phone, right?
Yeah, it's
a
basic
different
mobile cell technology.
It's a mobile cell technology.
Yeah.
It's different if you have packet technology, because then that, at least up to today, has not been hacked.
Yeah. What about people, though? I mean, the best systems in the world are useless unless the people who are using the systems are smart enough to do the things they need to do to secure it.
100%.
It goes all the way back to the putting in a good password, for instance.
No, exactly.
Are there still issues about that now? Do we have to educate the whole supply chain about proper use of this technology?
Yeah, there's that. Then there's other things that for example, push notifications. You know, it's all right to be sitting at a screen for hours on end and looking at where my freight's going. But if you can't do that, you want to be notified when you're out of geofence, when your temperature went too high, or when you've been breached. That push notification is available on just a very few of the systems out there, and you want that. If you're a shipper, if you're a freight, if you're the hardware owner, trailer, container owner, you need someone to tell you something went wrong.
Yeah. But none of this means that people shouldn't still stay alert. I mean,
You
human
have to
beings
stay
can't
alert.
say, well, the system's taking care of it. I can fall asleep and not worry about it. You still have to have people.
Here's
who
what
are
I see,
paying
though, and
attention.
you bring up a really good point. You have all these people in both the trucking side and in the ocean carrier side. You have, rooms and rooms, entire floors of buildings made up of people watching freight for customers. Where's my box? Where's my box? You got 30, 40, 50 people in a big open room that are doing nothing but that for customer service.
Right.
If you automate that process with the push alerts, you can reduce that number of people, and then what do they become? They become more intel oriented, looking at the pattern of life, taking the AI information, and coming up to the boss and saying, hey, we got a better way of doing this. We got a better mousetrap. So it really takes those people and reinvigorates them in a different way if they're not constantly just looking at a dashboard.
Okay, well, here's some positive things here about the technology and the people developing it that means we can really get our arms around this whole issue of cargo theft going forward.
I really hope so, because like you said, it's become an epidemic.
Yeah.
And it's not just freight from Mexico to the U.S. or freight in Los Angeles. It's everywhere, and organized crime's gotten into it. And as a 20-year veteran of customs after 9/11 and 20 years before, veteran of customs consulting, me personally and one of our partners at Bloodhound Tracking Device, two of us, we've experienced this throughout our whole 40-year career, watching this. And the growth in the last 5 to 6 years has been through the roof, Bob. It's never, ever been this bad.
Wow.
And when we built Bloodhound, that's exactly what we were building it for, how to stop that.
Curtis Spencer of Bloodhound Tracking Device, thank you so much for taking this time with me to bring me up to date on the state of cargo security, tracking, and sensing, in hopes that we can solve this problem of cargo theft. Thanks very much for being with me today.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate you.